On to the Manpower panel meeting. From Yu Zhang has something to say? Or are you for the next meeting? Okay. All right. I call to order meeting of the Manpower panel. Thank you. Please invite the administration to join us.
咁我哋用啲時間去講下啲我哋人力事務。
All right. The agenda for the Manpower panel. First, confirm minutes of our previous meeting. Minutes of our previous meeting. We have not received any proposal for amendments. An information paper issued since the last meeting. We have submission from the drivers of the driving school asking about their rights to organize and take part in union activities. And then there is also a letter from Mr. Albert Ho dated the 8th of February 2012 about regulation and monitoring of foreign domestic helpers agency, employment agencies. Okay. Days of next meeting and also the proposal for the agenda. The date of next meeting will be scheduled for the 19th of March, 4:30. We would like to discuss the requirement of continuous contract to receive deputations. I understand that it's the government's position that they will only come to a conclusion in the middle of this year. But the next meeting we want to meet deputations to consult them on the requirement of continuous contract. All right, administration, can you tell us when you can have a conclusion or the middle of this year? Do you have new statistics or is it just internal discussion of the government? We are now analyzing some statistics. Mr. Yu Zhang, speaker is off mic. I'd like to know whether the survey is not yet completed or what. I think by the time they come here in June, the review would have been completed. When are you going to publish the report? It's not that we are going to prepare a study report. From time to time, the government carries out internal policy studies. For instance, paternity leave, we did not have a study report. We just asked for statistics from the Census and Statistics Department for our internal analysis, and then we'll come to a conclusion. Is it a special report by the CNSD? All right. It's just statistics for internal reference. Of course, we're going to present the major figures to you. So it will be available by the middle of this year, and they will announce their decision. So are you going to publish the statistics and as well as your decision? Yes, for the next meeting, the first item is to meet deputations on the issue of continuous contract. And then we also have to deal with that submission from the teachers' union of the driving school. And we can talk about rights of trade unions. Please tell us the review of legislation, the number of prosecutions, and we'll also discuss discrimination against trade union members. And Mr. Albert Ho's proposal we'll discuss with the administration as to how we deal with agencies for foreign domestic or foreign helpers. Foreign domestic helpers. The Security Bureau might be involved. So we'll have to discuss with the Security Bureau first, as well as the LAB. So next time we will have only 2 items. And we are going to meet deputations for both items. First, continuous contract. Second, discrimination against trade unions. Shall we advance our meeting by half an hour? Next time, I don't want to run from 4:30 to 7. How about from 4 to 6:30? Okay. The next meeting will start at 4. And now we go into item 4 of our agenda, and that is the proposal to adjust the levy rate of business registration certificate for protection of wages on insolvency wages. Yes, it is a form of ex gratia payment to give timely help to assist to employees affected by insolvency of employers, and the money comes from business registration certificate levy, and board is responsible for managing the fund and to make recommendations to the CE. That's the Protection of Wages on Solvency Fund Board. So depending on the financial position of the fund and the economic situation, the levy can be adjusted. There have been three adjustments in the past. Once it was reduced from $600 to $450 in 2008, and then in 2009 there was the financial tsunami, and after the economy has recovered, the financial position of the fund has also improved. So the board has reviewed the levy rate, and it has taken into account various factors, including uncertainties faced by the local economy, and also the fund being a safety net for employees affected by business closures, and also the expanded scope of protection under the fund. The board has proposed to reduce the current level of $450 to $250 per annum, or a reduction of $200. Well, the LAB approved this unanimously in October 2012. There should be sufficient balance in the fund to ensure that there is cash and reserve to cater for the possible needs arising from economic downturn, and also any extra expenditure as a result of amendment to the coverage of the fund. This will ensure that the fund would continue to be sustainable. I urge members to support this proposal. Mr. Tommy Zhang, very quick. The LP and myself support the proposal. Good. Mr. Leung Yu-chung, I oppose, Chairman. The reason being, the fund is not giving a full coverage or full compensation to wages to employees. For wages, it's only $36,000, and there are also limits as to the other payments available to employees. Unless the fund is able to afford 100% compensation to employees, then I would agree to a reduction. But the administration has refused to do this, and therefore I oppose, because these are the fair share of employees they are due. If not for the insolvency or closure of the business concerned, the employee should get 100% of his entitlement. In fact, it is their hard-earned. They have made that by their blood and sweat. So I think it is not reasonable that we give a discount to what can be given to them. Now, you say that because the financial position is very good, you should reduce the levy. Then why don't you relax the entitlement? All that is due to an employee when a company goes bankrupt should be paid to him by the fund. Can that be done? Administration. In reviewing the financial situation, the board is of the view that the financial position is not the sole factor. We have to adhere to our established principles. First, we should adopt a gradual approach in enhancing protection for employees, and then we have to set a cap to ex gratia payment available to the employee to ensure sustainability of the fund, and then we should have a cap on the period for calculating the entitlement. Now, if the fund is required to pay all the it is not it's just a safety net. It is not to ensure that the employee can get all that is due to him. And the operation of the fund is bound by the relevant legislation. There is a cap to the ex gratia payment for wages. And regarding 2011 and 12, we're able to give 75% of the wages in arrears, and also the notice wages in lieu of notice over 80%. So while employees are not given their full share, usually employees can get the majority of what is due to them. Mr. Leung Yu-chong, I'd like to know whether employees are protected by law to get all wages due to them. As a matter of principle, is it the case? So on the one hand, you protect employees by law that he should get his full wages. Why is it that the fund will not give him his full share? So, Commissioner, how can you protect the legitimate rights of employees? Well, we're talking about the protection of wages on insolvency. No. I am talking about the employment ordinance.
The employment ordinance should protect that the all the wages in arrears should be given to the employees. Isn't it what is protected under the employment ordinance? If that is the case, how can the administration ensure that that is done? Yes, Commissioner. Yes, Chairman. The employment ordinance doesn't stipulate that, and generally, no ordinance will make that kind of 100% guarantee. And it says only that under certain channels can the employee make claims. Now, under the employment ordinance, the employee can seek compensation or claims for wages and entitlements due to them. Now, in the present case, the company goes broke and the company doesn't exist anymore. So in that case, the PDIF provides a safety net to offer timely assistance in financial terms. Mr. Kokake. Chairman, I see that the surplus is getting larger and larger, and I understand why you want to propose a reduction in the levy. From 2002 to now, the level of entitlement, $289,000, $36,000 for wages, $22,500 for wages in lieu of notice. What year was that drawn up? What kind of basis was that based on? Now, if wages have risen, what justifications can the administration provide not to adjust the ex gratia payment and then just reduce the levy? Commissioner? The cap on the payment is clearly spelled out under the ordinance. If that is going to be changed, then the amendment have to be made to the legislation. Now, the ordinance allows us to pay that much, and then we get this surplus. So that's why we propose a reduction on the levy. No, he hasn't answered me, Chairman. The current level, $22,500 for wages in lieu of notice, and the other level of payment. What year was that drawn up? Now, you have allowed for KMB to raise its fare by 4.9%. I think the workers are in a plight, and they have been deceived the wages by their employers. Why aren't you adjusting upwards the amount based on the increase in wages? The wages, what percentage have the wages risen since the payment level was drawn up last time? Commissioner, yes, the fund covers the wages. The outstanding wages was drawn up the level in 1996, and the wages in lieu of notice was drawn up in 1996. The severance payment, the cap, was drawn up in 1999. If members felt that these figures were obsolete, I think, yes, I agree that a review can be made. Oh, I don't follow your logic, Chairman. 17 years you have not adjusted the caps of these wages and wages in lieu of notice and severance payment. Now, you're not tackling these, and now you're proposing a cut in the levy instead. If you are going to raise the level of payments for the employees, would you be asking for an increase in the levy next year? I don't want you to change your policies all the time. Can you not adjust the level of payment in accordance with the wage rise? The median income, the rise, what percentage is that? Can you adjust the payment level based on that? And what would be the amount in 2013 if we are going to raise the wages by the formula that I suggested? Commissioner? If you find that the ceiling payment has not been adjusted for so many years, I think we can relay your views to the fund board and for them to consider. Yes, Mr. Yip can supplement, perhaps. Chairman, I would like to say that the wage level and the outstanding wages are two different things. Why is it that the $36,000 has not been adjusted since 1996? We see that the situation of outstanding wages has improved a lot, and the LD has been doing a lot of work on tackling or clamping down on the outstanding wages, and the employees are owed wages from 2 to 6 months of wages. In 2011, over 75% of the cases, the fund has paid out to the employees, and for the remaining 25%, they were extreme cases, and the outstanding wages extended beyond 4 months' wages. So these are two different things, Chairman. Yes, I know that the cases are getting smaller in number, but I don't agree with you that these two things are not linked together. When you draw up the payment level in 1996, that was based on something, right? So can you provide us with the figures on the number of employees who are not compensated 100% of their entitlements. In their claims, we have paid out 99% of their entitlements in 2011-2012. So you are saying that 25% are claiming an amount larger than what is allowed. Is that right? Yes. Can you give us the detailed breakdowns of the figures? So, can you give us a breakdown of the two sets of figures, i.e. those who are receiving $36,000, which is 4 months wages, and then a cap of $36,000? Mr. Chen Kim-pong, I support the proposal. I think this mechanism can be adjusted flexibly to rise or to fall. Now, if the fund is not doesn't have enough money, then you are going to raise the levy. By the end of 2013, you would have $2.9 billion left. Compared to 2002, your excrescere payment made is $514 million. I think you are very comfortable financially. So according to the mechanism, established mechanism, there's a need to reduce the levy. Yes, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Well, nobody will object to a reduction in the levy. I want to ask a more basic question. Using the BRC levy to pool the funds for the PWIF, is that a reasonable mechanism? I think the basic question is, levy has to be paid by everyone. Should it be pegged to the risk of the company or the risk of the company closing down? I don't know how the mechanism works. Say if for business registration, this company employs 1 person, and then the other company employs 10 persons. So it seems that the levy is not directly linked to the risk associated with the business registered company. Would you consider whether to link the levy with the risk? Well, I think this question was raised some 2 decades ago in the beginning when we established the fund. Yes, Commissioner, do you have anything to say on that? 2 decades ago, I am not sure about the discussion 2 decades ago. I think what your proposal will incur some difficulties in implementation. Whether a business will close down is not directly linked to the size of the company. And your proposal will make the levy system too complicated. We want to do it in a very convenient or easy way. So the existing practice is irrespective of the size of the company. $450 will be levied. And then we can accumulate a big surplus. I don't think there is a present need to sort of levying different rates on different companies of different sizes. I think the study of your proposal will also take time, and it's not a very scientific way of doing it, I think. Well, we discussed that 2 decades ago. Somebody suggested that the levy should be that the rate should be levied based on the head counts, but that was not taken forward. Okay, the big companies or small companies pay the same levy, and the SME are also paying the same levy. It's very complicated to link it to the head count. Can we do it like dividing up the companies into 2 or 3 categories based on their statutory capital? For a small-sized company, if they have to pay several $100 a year, then that's a burden. So can the administration think of cutting down the levy for SMEs? Statutory capital, as far as I understand, a big company can be established using a small amount of statutory capital. I don't think it can achieve the desired results, but in any case, you can go back and take a look. Yes, I'll ask a question, and then Mr. Lang Yu-chung, and then we'll have a second round of questions. My position is simple. I have been arguing with you over the holiday, and now I'm very angered by this set of figures you presented on the pay for untaken annual leave. Let's not limit it to just the 2 years prior to the last work day. Now, some employees may not take annual leave within in 5 or 6 years. We think that pay for these untaken leave should be paid. If we can relax the criteria on untaken annual leave and untaken statutory holiday, then that would be better. Some members suggested about the adjustment in wage levels and also severance payment level. I think the fund can give out more compensation in severance payment because severance payment has been offset with the MPF. So there are fewer and fewer people who have to be paid severance payment because of the introduction of MPF. So which portion does the fund cover? If the severance payment is $100,000 and the MPF is $80,000, does the fund cover the remaining $20,000? Or do you do it do you after deducting the MPF? So I would just want to make sure that I'm clear on the mechanism, how the severance pay offsets the MPF. And there will be fewer cases of employees having to pay the severance payment because of this offsetting mechanism with the MPF. There are fewer employees who have a portion which is not offset by the MPF, those who are employed before 2000. Under the existing law?
Commissioner, well, under the current legislation, the severance payment, well, the first $50,000 of the severance payment will be paid, and if the balance is $100,000, then 50% of that remainder or that balance. All right, so the fund will pay out $100,000. What about offsetting by MPF? To put it simply, now if employees' contribution in that MPF account is also $50,000, then it can be used to offset the remainder. That means you are going to recover that $50,000 because you have paid out of pocket on behalf of the relevant employer. So you're going to get that $50,000 from the MPF account. All right, I will defer to my colleague for the detailed calculation. In 2011-12, severance payment payout of the fund was up to 40%. You talked about the offsetting arrangement. So in some cases, the severance payment was paid by the MPF contributions under the offsetting payments. So, relatively speaking, a smaller portion of the severance payment has come from the fund. Yes, if the worker is entitled to a severance pay of $100,000, the mechanism is $50,000 plus 50% of the remainder, because the definition follows that in the employment ordinance. If under the employment ordinance the employee is entitled to $100,000, then the first $50,000 plus 50% of the remainder, that means $75,000. You mentioned his accrued benefits. If it is $50,000, because the employee is already entitled to $50,000 from the accrued benefits, then the fund will only pay $25,000. In total, the employee still gets $75,000. If not for that offsetting arrangement, then the remainder is $25,000. Then I think the employee will get his full entitlement. That is $100,000. Why don't you reform the system first? You do away with the offsetting arrangement. Then there's no harm in using this $50,000 plus 50% of the entitlement. So at least the employee can get his full share of severance pay. The current system is such that he can never get his full share, because you recover the your out-of-pocket ex gratia. You recover your ex gratia payment from his accrued benefits. So we asked the offsetting arrangements to be removed from the MPF system, but that was not done in the last term. I'd like to know whether you're going to do this. And Dr. Kwokake would want you to revise the cap for wages. Why don't you lower the rate after you have done that? Now, if you can if you can relax the caps, then I don't mind if you waive the levy for 2-3 years, because the fund has such a huge reserve. So even during the worst days, you were able to remain a balance for 5-6 years. Well, last year I took pains to ask you to remove the offsetting arrangements, and yet you are so adamant. Well, now if you are willing to reconsider your position, we might also consider relaxing our position here. Mr. Leung Yu Chung, I think the employees have their entitlements under the employment ordinance, no matter how he gets his entitlement. That is his full share. You don't have a mechanism to ensure that he gets his full share. All right, you have this protection of wages on insolvency fund, but the arrangement is as if you are having mercy on the employees. This is not the case. These are their entitlements. You have to plug the loopholes by using this fund. And that being the case, well, since you have such a huge reserve or surplus, why don't you improve the percentage of entitlement? And the cap has been in place for more than a decade without any revision. Why don't you take this opportunity to revise the cap? According to the Commissioner, there is room for this to be revised. I hope that at the next meeting you can give us the scope of your review, covering all the points mentioned by colleagues this afternoon, and carry out the review. If after the review you still want to cut the rate, it doesn't matter, so that you can have a truly dual-track approach. Now, on the one hand, employees cannot get their full entitlements, and you want to lower the rate. That's unfair. So, Commissioner, please tell us when you can revise the review the whole system. When can you come back, the Commissioner? Last time we expanded the scope of the fund to cover pay for untaken annual leave and untaken statutory holidays, and that took effect on the 21st of June 2012. So after 1 year, there would be a review. So there's no question of last scores haven't not yet settled, and you want us to do something more. All right. Mr. Leung wants us to carry out a comprehensive review of the mechanism. Now, this is a statutory board for managing the fund. I have to refer this to the board to discuss first, and I cannot tell you now when or how long they're going to take to review the mechanism. As Mr. Chen Kim-po said, this is a mechanism that allows for both upward and downward adjustments. Since there is surplus, if we cut the rate first, I think it is a fair approach for the business sector. If we don't cut the rate now, if after the review, or rather, well, during the review or pending completion of the review, employees are still getting the same level of protection rather than dragging our feet. We cut the rate first and ask the board to have a full review of the mechanism. They are just coaxing us into accept their proposal. Can you give us an undertaking? If you give us an undertaking, it's fine. You tell us that the board is an autonomous body, so how can we trust you? Will you just allude us into accepting a proposal and then forget about it afterwards? There is a representative from the Labour Department sitting on the board. However, the board is really a statutory board. It operates independently. I cannot give you any undertaking on their behalf. And an objective fact is it has a surplus of $3.1 billion. And when there was the need, well, in 1998, the levy was just $100, and then it was subsequently increased to $600. And I think it is an appropriate, a reasonable approach to lower the rate given the current economic situation. And then we will ask the board to decide whether the caps set more than a decade ago should be reviewed now. The Labour Department must have a position first. If the department can tell us categorically its position, I'm most assured. If the Labour Department doesn't give us its position, I am not happy. Well, the wages, $36,000 is not very high. So can you give us a clear undertaking that a review will be conducted? All right. You only promise to relay our request to the board, and you cannot undertake that the review would come to the conclusion demanded by Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. My inclination is that there is room for improvement, but I don't have the right to say that it can certainly be improved or coverage or protection can be enhanced. But you should tell board members, last year we asked for relaxation and they wanted to be prudent. And back then there was already a huge surplus. All right, they wanted to be prudent last time. This time I want to be prudent. I'm going to follow their example. Well, since last year they were not willing to concede. Why should I concede it this time? So, well, it is better if there is give and take on both parts, on both sides. Last year, there was a big surplus, and they were very prudent. They will not relax the coverage. All right, this time it's my turn to be prudent. You want to be fair to employers, but what about to employees? You have to be accountable to them. Well, if you consider the expansion of the scope, well, the coverage has been, or the protection has been enlarged. Yes, I know, but you know this is not what I want. Well, I gave you the cap of 10450, but you were not willing to cover or to provide 4 months of statutory holidays. All right, last time there was no give and take. This time, why should there be any give and take? Well, last year, I said I didn't have a problem with lowering the rates, but you were not willing to concede. So this time, why should I concede? Yes, I agree that it should be give and take. But this time, if I don't know how to get back to them. You tell them, because last time they would not, budge an inch. All right. All right. All right, using the same level of concession, I would say $450, cut it to $400. Just a cut of a small amount, all right? We're asking for full review and then for the adjustment of the rate to be done at the same time. Okay, please relay our message to them. Date of next meeting, the 19th of March at 4 p.m.